get going. Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And today we have a special guest for you. I've got Paul Gurizzian from Ducker Carlisle. He's the CEO, and he's got a couple topics. We're going to talk about tariffs a bit, and we're going to talk about some other things. Paul, I want to just welcome you to the show. How are you doing?
Great, David. Thanks for having me and looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, so I've been in this space for a couple of years. Bill is obviously the grizzled EV veteran who's been in the EV space for like 30 plus years. And
well,
so
not quite that long, but pretty close.
Well, you've had EV World since what, 97 or 98?
Well, technically 97, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the world's oldest electric vehicle website. So it's real, yeah. So it's been around a long time, and we've been doing this show for about starting about a month. We'll have been doing this for 2 years together. So
great.
Yeah. So, anyways, first off, tell me a little bit about what Ducker Carlisle does.
Sure. So Ducker Carlisle, we are a professional services firm that helps our clients make better decisions and get bottom line results. And we'll do research for them. We call it B2B or business to business research. We will do consulting, helping them set out better strategies, make operational improvements. And those are mostly for our corporate clients. And about 25% of our work is in private equity, where we'll help our private equity clients with what we call market studies or commercial due diligence to help them make the right purchase decisions of companies and the right selling of portfolio companies. And the connection here with EV World is that we're narrow and deep in a few industries: automotive, heavy equipment, building and construction products, materials, and I'd say industrials broadly. I said materials, lightweighting materials, which has an automotive application. So many of our clients are on the EV journey. But today I think I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about tariffs.
Nice. Now, so you're helping clients, and you say they're acquiring things. Are we talking about like auto dealerships, or what specifically would those type of private equity companies be acquiring?
Yeah, we don't do a lot of work in buying and selling of dealerships. That's a niche that's a little bit separate from what we are.
Okay.
We will help our clients in the private equity space identify tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers.
Okay.
And we're very active in the automotive aftermarket. That's just a great part of the business where there's always interest, because that part is less cyclical than car sales going up and down with the business cycle. The margins, both for installers and parts makers, are pretty darn attractive, and it's a high customer touch point. So we're really strong in the automotive aftermarket.
Got it. Now, let's go ahead and get right into tariffs, because obviously this year tariffs have been on kind of a wild ride. They're on, they're off, they're on, they're off. I don't know if they're on right now or not. I know there's some, but it just seems from day to day it's hard to keep up. So tell us about what's going on.
Yeah, so these are challenging and uncertain times for our clients, because the industries that I ticked off, they are, and I should have said we're about 80% of our work is in North America and 20% in Europe. So for many of our North American clients, they are sourcing from Mexico, they're sourcing from Canada, they are sourcing from Europe, and certainly from China and Southeast Asia. And there's uncertainty because the amount of time that it takes to change your supply patterns where you're buying from can take months, if not years. And with these varying tariff levels, that means your costs change, and you're not sure how your competitors are going to react with those cost changes and how you should price and change with your customers. So lots of uncertainty.
Okay. And so what do you see coming ahead? I mean, any thoughts?
Yeah. So, I'm not going to try to predict what's going to happen with tariffs, what tariff rates, and from what countries. I've got that completely wrong. I was in Munich, Germany, in December, and I was sitting with about 25 CEOs of sort of German middle market manufacturing companies, many that export to the U.S. And they said, "Hey, Paul, you're an American. What's going to happen under the Trump administration with tariffs?" I said to them with great confidence, "Don't worry about it." I said, "All of the swing states, the swing states for the election, like Michigan and Ohio and Wisconsin," I said, they're highly integrated with Canada and Mexico. So there's not going to be high tariffs because that would be politically bad, and the Republicans need a midterm election in 2 short years away. So I completely missed that prediction. So I'm not going to try to tell you what I think the future holds, but what I can do is tell you some things that I think companies might need to do to respond to this uncertain environment.
Okay.
Does that make sense, David?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
well, and for the record, I'm not sure that you're wrong about what your original thought was. It's just that it may not play out in a time span that makes people happy.
Well, okay, I said I'm not going to predict, but I can't help myself. Yeah. I do think as we get closer to the midterms, there will be increasing pressure to ratchet down tariffs so Republicans can hold the House, but we'll see.
That seems like a pretty reasonable prediction, I think.
Yeah. But so let me tell you a little bit about some needs that I see for our clients and how we're responding. The first is I think that we should just assume that we're now in a world where higher tariffs will be in place for a long time relative to the past 50 years. Okay, I think as a business leader and a business planner, it's prudent to make that assumption. And so for our European clients that has historically manufactured in Europe and exported to the US market, I think it makes more sense than ever to increase their distribution, their control of distribution in the US and their manufacturing in the US. We historically would have told our clients, look to Mexico, but with all this uncertainty, I think you need to consider Mexico, Canada, and certainly the US. And in response to that, what we've done at Ducker Carlisle to better service our clients, we merged 6 weeks ago with Munich Strategy, which is very similar to Ducker Carlisle, same industry coverage. They're based in Munich, Germany, very strong in Europe, but not as strong in the US. We historically very strong in the US, although we have a presence in Paris, Berlin, and London, and Lisbon not as strong in Europe. And our goal now is to help our industrial clients in Europe, particularly Germany, and our building and construction products in Europe, particularly in Germany, better set up distribution and a manufacturing footprint in the US market so they can be successful in this higher tariff area. I can't say that that was the rationale for our merger with Munich, but it felt more compelling than ever, and that was a key reason to bring these two businesses together. So that's one. I'll just pause for a moment because then I want to go to what we're doing for our U.S. clients in this environment. But I'll just pause for a moment to see Bill and David if you want to drill deeper on that one.
Well, so is the Munich strategy, are they doing similar work, or is it different? Do they differentiate from what Ducker Carlisle does?
So very similar work, strategy growth, helping clients grow the top line quicker, helping clients transform their businesses, and helping private equity firms in Europe do commercial due diligence for potential acquisitions and dispositions in Europe. So really kind of a really close mirror image of us, but Europe based and particularly German based.
Can I ask you, and I'm not obviously you can't give away your secret sauce, but I'm interested in how does a company like Dr. Carlson, how do you take and research these companies, and how do you find out, sort of get a sense of the direction? I mean, what tea leaves are you reading to try to come up with plausible strategies for these clients?
Yeah, so I could spend a long time, but I'll boil it down to a few things that I think are our secret sauce. The first is we tend to be in niche industries where there is very little public data available. And when I say public data, I mean things like how big is the market? How big is the market growing? Who are the key competitors? What are the channels to market? Okay. So if you were looking to buy a company that buys and sells or buys and makes potato chips, that's a big consumer market where that data is readily available and you can Google it.
Yeah.
But we tend to help our clients, and I'll call relatively moderate to smaller size niche industries. So the first thing that we do is what I call primary research, where we have built up over time techniques and methods to find competitors, find installers, find distributors, find customers, and interview, good old-fashioned interview, learn what's happening in the quantitative. So that's the first. The second thing is we've got a 50-year plus history in these industries. So we built up lots and lots of proprietary data that nobody else has. So when we get asked the question, we've probably answered half or 2/3 of that question before, and we've got unique data that we built up over time.
Okay.
The third thing is we've got about 210 employees, and particularly for our senior folks, they've grown up in these industries and they have industry expertise, and they can apply judgment based on a long track record. So I'd say that's why we're different, and it's our right to win.
Yeah, that goes a long ways when you've got the people that have that industry expertise, and they can tell you where those numbers should be, and what are reasonable margins, and and sales and things like that. So yeah, that definitely goes a long ways. That help, Bill?
Yeah. Also, of course, now we're coming into the age of AI, and I'm wondering what role do you see in a client saying, well, I don't need to hire them. I'll just ask AI to answer all my questions for me. So what role do you see that playing going forward?
Yeah. So I think AI is both a threat to our firm and an opportunity for our firm with our customers. Okay. And I talked about that we do a lot of primary research, but we also supplement that with some secondary research where AI tools can help us go quicker and do better work. Also, we can deliver AI tools to help our clients automate a lot of manual processes that they spend a lot of time hunting and pecking and looking for data and reformatting data. And we think that's a big opportunity. So in the response, we've made a big bet at Ducker Carlisle and AI in November. So 8 months ago, we've opened an office in Lisbon, Portugal. And we now have a team of 8 AI experts that we've hired from Google and other highly pedigreed AI firms. And we're building a center of competency in Lisbon for both North America and Europe. And you say, well, why Lisbon? Well, there's a couple of reasons. The first is what I've learned is that there's actually a center of competency in Lisbon. There's a community of AI experts. So that's one. The second is it's a really cool place to live and relatively affordable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a way for us to attract some great talent and offer them a chance to live in Lisbon.
Yeah, as one of the favorite places for Americans and particularly people in the tech industry, if they want to go overseas, Lisbon is generally at the top of the list.
Yeah. Yep. So we've now got a team there, and we're providing our clients both, I'll call them standalone AI solutions to automate manual processes like call centers that might be like very antiquated and difficult to respond quickly, responding to proposals more quickly and more carefully. And then we're also bundling AI tools into our traditional research and consulting to make it more valuable.
Okay. Yeah, and I might add too that your industry expertise, because I work with the AI all the time, and I will inevitably come across where it doesn't know what the hell it's talking about. So having some industry expertise to correct the AI, I could see that being a value.
So that's one of our differentiators, Bill. We are trying to bundle our consultants in research with 30 years of experience with our new AI colleague to bring industry judgment along with AI tools.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great use. I mean, it's amazing how much time I save on researching different things by using AI, and it just makes it makes so much better use of my time. I'm gonna ask. So one of the things, obviously, we're an EV focused company, and you're saying you're dealing in mostly in aftermarket companies. But what are people saying about how are EVs affecting how the aftermarket automotive industry works? You see any changes in this?
One of the solutions that we provide to our clients is we call it the electric vehicle aftermarket benchmark that we're holding this August with about a dozen both traditional legacy automakers and the new EV startups. And the 2.5-day conference is focused specifically on how do you service customers in an EV versus a traditional industrial or an internal combustion engine. And, there's a few things that we see that are different about servicing customers and how customers react. The first is that the consumption of parts and labor are a lot lower in electric vehicles than they are on ICE vehicles. And there's a few reasons, but the simplest is there are a lot fewer moving parts, and parts that don't have maintenance intervals and parts that don't have repair cycles that are as frequent. Okay. So the baseline is that for customers, they're going back, initially back to the dealer channel less often. and then post-warranty going back to a chain or an independent less frequently, okay? Now, the one area where we do see difference is on tires, where we actually see higher tire consumption with EVs than we do with ICE vehicles. And it's pretty straightforward if you think about it. The car's way more money, the car's way more.
Way more, yeah.
Way more. And the second is there's a lot more torque. So tires wear out pretty quickly when you're accelerating in a heavy vehicle.
Mhm.
Now, what we do see is that for gas-powered customers, you know, they'll leave their franchise dealer, their Chevy dealer or their Toyota dealer 2, 3, 4 years after an initial purchase, right? You get about 4 to 5 years old, 50 to 60% of customers now are going to alternative channels. We do see that those customers are more loyal to the dealer channel. Now, it may be because those are more expensive cars with more wealthy consumers that can afford the dealer channel. It may be that these are early adopters that love technology and they respect that the dealer is better at technology than the aftermarket. But at least for now, we see that those customers are staying in the dealer channel longer.
Now, these are electric vehicle customers you're speaking of, not ICE.
We're talking about electric
Yeah.
vehicles rather
Right.
than gas
Okay.
powered. Yeah.
So one of my things when I look at car dealerships right now is EVs tend to last about 50% longer than a gas car, and EVs are coming down in price. I think one of the things that even when people talk about, say, EV sales slow down, well, some of it is people don't necessarily need to get rid of their EVs because their EVs are running just fine. They're not concerned that it's going to stop running anytime soon. And so I have this feeling that in about 15 years, 20 years, or whatever, when EVs are a much bigger part of the market, you're going to see overall car sales in the US maybe drop by as much as a third, just because people don't need, they don't need to go get another car.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see some changes. And I think safe in some parts of the country, people get in a lot of accidents. Now, where Bill and I live in Omaha, we're not one of those high accident cities, thankfully. But
Thankful.
you know, I think as you start getting into, you know, issues where the self-driving cars talk to each other and say, "Hey, don't hit me," you know, kind of thing.
Right.
You know, you're going to see cars just start lasting longer and fewer of them going to the scrapyard because they've been totaled out. And so I really wonder what that's going. I mean, what are your thoughts on how this is going to play out? Because this obviously, you know, everybody's like wants to sell more cars, but I think realistically, EVs are going to cause the opposite effect at some point, where just overall car sales in general are going to stagnate because people don't keep needing to refresh their automobiles. Any thoughts?
Yeah, you know, that's an interesting point. I haven't fully thought that through. I think today I read that like the average car on the road is about 12 and a half years old.
Mhm.
And if we went back, you know, 2 decades ago, I don't know, it might have been 9 or 10 years old. So in general, we're seeing the car park get older and older. And you know, we're seeing that. How much of a bearing that's had on new car sales, I'm not sure. Because I think, you know, the used car market is maybe 4 to 5 times the size of the new car market. I think the new car market is maybe 15 to 16 million units a year. And sort of the wealthiest cohort of Americans buy new. After 3 to 4 years, they're selling that. And by the time that car gets 12 to 15, they're on the third or fourth owner. But I think, David, you make a good point. At a certain point, if there's a longer lifespan, it could have a second order effect on slowing new vehicle sales.
I mean, there's always the possibility that population increases or more people start deciding to own cars, right?
Yeah.
But you know, there's this talk with the people who are now graduating high school, college. A lot of them are avoiding getting licenses. They're
Right.
getting used to ride share and things like that. And you know, so it's interesting to see where some of this is going. And besides ride share, we're starting to see full self-driving vehicles. Tesla just started their tuber service in Austin. By the way, you can feel free to use that. That's what I'm calling it. I'm calling it tuber.
Dave came up with that as a hashtag, tuber.
Yeah, hashtag tuber. So a lot of our episodes there have hashtag tuber at the start, but it's Tesla couldn't trademark robo-taxi or cybercab, so just calling it Tesla robo-taxi, and it's just easier to say tuber. So if I go to Austin, I'm going to order a tuber, and people are going to know exactly what I'm saying. I'm going to order the potato that's going to come pick me up, and it's going to be a Tesla, and it's going to be full self-driving.
Yeah.
So but anyways.
Hey, can I go back to the tariffs? I told you what we were doing for European clients coming to the U.S., but I'd like to tell you a little bit how we're trying to help our U.S. or North American-based clients in this tariff environment. So here's a challenge that we're finding, that many of our clients that we work with, they have a wide product range with a large bill of materials. Okay. And when you read in the newspaper the headline that today tariffs from Canada go from 20 to 40%, and from China from 45% to 145%, for our clients, it is really difficult to say what is the impact that is going to have on my costs. And not just like my cost in aggregate, but my costs product by product by product. Because in many cases, they're sourcing assemblies, they're sourcing components, or they're sourcing raw materials, but they don't know what their suppliers or suppliers are doing and where they're buying. Okay. And in response, we built a tool called the AI Tariff Analyzer, where through both analyzing our clients' data, their product lists, their bill of materials, their import records from U.S. Customs, and doing searches out on the web, we are able to simulate with pretty darn good accuracy very quickly what is the impact on their costs day by day, country by country, product by product. Okay, so that's our AI Tariff Analyzer. The other thing that is challenging in this environment is you get these increased costs, and as a corporate leader, the question is, well, what do I do about it? Do I absorb these and take it out of my margin and try to get share, or do I pass prices on to my customers to maintain my margins? But you don't know how your competitors are going to act. So we've also developed a second tool. We call it the AI Tariff Competitor Analysis tool, where for the competitors that we jointly identify through public information, we can do what if scenarios and estimate how competitors are going to react by looking at their sourcing patterns and make some assumptions based on historical margins, how they're going to price and act. And so with those two things, understanding your costs at a detailed level and getting a sense on what your competitors are going to do, our clients can make smarter decisions on, do they take price or hold price, introduce newer products, et cetera. And that's been very well received by our customers in the marketplace.
Do you see some of them making changes of manufacturing location already as a result of this data?
Not a lot so far. Now, I told you we're deep in auto. I read in the Detroit News this week that General Motors announced that they're going to spend $4 billion with a B dollars to move vehicle assembly from Mexico to the U.S. But that's going to be a 2-year or 3-year journey, right?
Might be a Democrat in office then.
So here's the challenge. We've got these tariffs. do you move your manufacturing to the US? And then if the tariffs go down and find you're no longer competitive with Mexico or Vietnam. So I think our clients, I would characterize, are cautious, because I'm using this word again, uncertainty, on when do I make a big investment decision with all this uncertainty. So we're hearing announcements, but I'm not seeing a lot of real world action yet.
Got it. Got it. I did some stuff during the pandemic with selling medical supplies, and a lot of all of the, they called it PPE, all of those goods had pretty much stopped being made in the United States, and they were critical emergency supplies. And so all of that manufacturing had disappeared over the previous couple of decades and gone over to China. Well, then China was slow to provide it to the United States because they wanted to use it internally, and the U.S. was kind of getting what was left over. And then companies, as the pandemic, dragged on and on, some companies here in the United States started manufacturing these products, but I still don't think they have protection. I don't know if those companies managed to stay in business because now everybody can order the stuff from China again. Right. And, so it's interesting to see. You'd think there'd be certain, obviously there's certain industries we need to have here in the United States. And you want to see if, say, somebody like General Motors is going to put out $4 billion of their own cash to move a factory to the United States, they should have some protections. The government should play ball to help ensure that that factory doesn't close up again, and those jobs that get created from that don't go back, leave the country again.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's one thing though that's kind of unique about our two-party system is that it tends to work out pretty well. Every about 4 to 8 years, a different party takes over the government, right? And they get the crack at it, and then it sways back and forth, but it rarely goes more than 12 years. One party kind of controls our government, and these policies keep getting changed. Sometimes it's just too damn much how some of the things have changed. Bill and I really support a lot of things that were passed in the Inflation Reduction Act, and they're really unpopular with Trump, even though most of the job benefits went to Republican states. And it's been an interesting exercise in watching some of these things play out, and it really makes me wonder with these tariffs. Go ahead, Bill.
Can I ask what's sort of been the reaction of your clients, both overseas and within the United States, to, we seemed to be cruising along fairly steadily. Everybody kind of knew what the playing field was, adjusted their strategies, and then all of a sudden we get tossed into this uncertainty of 55% tariff, 155%, all this juggling. So how have they sort of responded to that? What are their views? Is the outcome or the goal of these tariffs, is that a good thing to bring business back to the United States, or how are they responding? How are they see it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, our customers are what are called deal partners at private equity firms and executives at big corporate clients. Okay.
All right.
And I kind of think I've seen kind of three stages so far. I think the first was, I might characterize, shock, where I can't believe this is happening. Oh my God, these are enormous numbers. They're changing day to day. And maybe hand wringing and complaining. But as a business leader, that doesn't help anybody. So I'd say the second thing is, pretty soon our clients just got down to, what do we know, what don't we know, and what can we manage to based on all this uncertainty. So I'd call it just getting to work, getting a handle on your costs, getting a handle on your supply chain, and managing in this environment as well as you can. Okay. And I'd say that the current stage that we're at is now caution. Caution to make decisions to invest, caution to make acquisitions, cautions to make big bets on launching new products, caution on hiring third parties to do research and consulting because of all this uncertainty. We need to get past this caution stage when some of this uncertainty gets down so we can get back to business as usual. I think that's kind of, I think it was like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? Let's get back to work. And now we're in caution and getting back to work, and we need to get back to willing to make investments in this environment.
Nice, nice. Let's see. So you were originally with Carlisle as the CEO, and then you guys merged with Ducker in what, 22 or 23?
22, yeah.
22. And so what was that like, having the combination of different corporate cultures?
Yeah, it was a great experience, and it was a lot of change. What's interesting is that Carlisle had a 30-year history, greatly influenced by its founder, David Carlisle, who was just a brilliant guy and a big personality, a classic founder. And Ducker was founded 50 plus years ago by Mr. Ducker. I never had the opportunity to meet him, but I've talked to folks who work for him and his family, and same thing, big personality, classic founder. So you put two companies together that come from those histories, and you don't know how it's going to work out. And in a professional service firm, it has to work out because I don't know if you heard this expression. Every night at 5:30, your assets go home when they go down the elevator.
Yeah.
We've been really fortunate that we blended these two cultures together and have done well together. And the reason I say that is our retention rate for a firm has been very good, and particularly for our senior most people, we've had extraordinary retention rates compared to the industry. So it tells you if people like the culture, they like what they're doing, they like the entrepreneurial environment. So it's been a good thing for us. It's been a good thing for our shareholders and a good thing for our customers.
So you're leading a 60-plus-year-old company. And so that's really seen some ups and downs, peaks and troughs in the economy. I'm sure when people talk about the good old days, what are they referring to in your business?
What were the good old days?
Let's see, Nixon.
You know, I went through the financial crisis in 2008 and 9. When I remember watching the news at night in September and October, and all of our clients were laying off lots and lots of staff. I went through 9/11. I went through COVID, and I don't want to have to go through another one of these things. I'm not sure yet I'd characterize these tariff issues are at that scale, but for our clients, they're another trial. So I don't know. I don't know if there were ever the good old days. I'm kind of happy what we're doing now and looking forward.
Great.
Well, it's certainly a changing environment, isn't it? I mean, so how do you see the technology has changed in, let's say, in the last 25 years, and how that's impacted your business?
Yeah, I think clearly, if I go back 30, 35 years, obviously pre-internet and pre-personal computers, we've all lived that, so I don't have to explain that sea change. I think now the next wave here is, well, let me just pause before I go to AI. What I do miss is pre-COVID, we had a lot more face-to-face contact with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was really effective. And now, post-COVID, even with our clients that are back in the office substantially, we find, like many others, we're still reliant on Zoom and Teams. And so, I probably have fewer Delta frequent flyer miles, Delta Sky miles, but I'd really like to get back face to face with clients more and more.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's my age that I'm showing, but I just think that's a great way to get work done and develop new knowledge. We've already talked about AI going forward. I'm not sure what the future holds. I don't think I can tell you, and I'd be doubtful if someone gives you a firm prediction. But I think we're on the next cusp of radical change. We at Ducker Carlisle have made a big bet on AI because if I waited till we had a perfect business plan and a crystal clear view to the future, we might miss the whole darn thing. So, I don't think AI is going to create massive job loss. Most technological innovations have created as many jobs as they've destroyed. But I'm interesting to see how AI is going to unfold here over the next decade.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a thing where it said AI might be coming for your job, but here are 22 types of jobs it's going to open up. Right. So,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, it does make you wonder. I've heard that it's supposed to be the medical space is supposed to be where AI is going to have the least impact. And then the flip side, though, I see all these things with diagnoses and things like that, but it's just that there's still, no matter what, when you have something where you need like hands-on care, I think that's a little bit harder to get warmth from AI or a robot.
Yeah.
There's something to just, human companionship and warmth that, makes a big difference in some spaces. But I think even a lot of the work I'm able to do with AI, I just notice it making me more effective as opposed to, and it saves me time, but I don't think in some cases I might have hired somebody to have done some work, but in most cases I just simply would have spent more of my own time trying to find the information or put it together some other way. And
Yeah.
so, not saying that that's necessarily costing anybody a job. Now, you talked a little bit about some stuff with AI. I'm seeing something about something called SparkWise.
So SparkWise is the sub brand at Ducker Carlisle that we're using for our AI practice to help our clients understand that we have both a standalone AI practice and a practice that complements our traditional Ducker and Carlisle research and consulting services.
Okay. All right. I've pretty much gone through the questions I had. There anything you'd like to add today?
Can I add something here? I'm just curious as to the field that you're getting from. Apparently you're dealing with some auto suppliers and things like that. I just saw a study that Shell published that they interviewed supposedly in Europe and the United States something like 15,000 vehicle owners as to their attitude towards electric cars. And the Shell study came off and said people are losing interest in electric cars. I'm wondering what kind of how is that being reflected maybe in what your companies, your clients are thinking in terms of do I start taking a serious look at MOSFETs and copper for pins for electric motors, or do I stick to pistons and spark plugs?
Yeah. So, I think about this a lot, and we think a lot about this with our clients. I'll tell you, in China, I was in Shanghai last year. The answer you give in China is much different than the answer you give in the United States. The number of EV vehicles that you see on the road are extraordinary.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of government subsidies, but now some really low price points on vehicles that are extraordinarily affordable.
$7,000. Leap Motor CEO just announced that he sees a time in the not too distant future where you can buy a full size SUV for the equivalent of $7,000.
Okay, that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to talk about China. I'm going to focus mostly on like a U.S. or a North American.
Good.
I think if you look at the investment decisions that the major automotive are making, you're seeing them, one, make bigger investment in hybrid vehicles.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason is consumers are saying with their dollars, their purchase decisions, we like hybrids. They're affordable to buy, they're affordable to operate, and you kind of get the best of both worlds. We're seeing the OEs defer and push out their launching of new electronic vehicles or electrical vehicles. I think we're going to continue to see a mix of both gas, hybrid, and EVs, but clearly relative to a few years ago, I think the rate of growth in EVs and cars will be lower than just about all the forecasts were. And I think some of it has to do with reduced federal support, and some of it has to do with changing consumer opinion.
I think there's definitely some of that. And some of it too, like I was saying, I think you're going to start seeing EV owners hold onto their cars longer than what you traditionally see with gas cars. Now, up until now, though, our main EV in the United States for a while was the Tesla Model 3. And those are starting to come off of lease in massive numbers now. And you're starting to see that now with the Model Y. But I think you'll start seeing more, because there was also incentives to lease versus, because you could get a $7,500 tax credit by leasing when you couldn't get it because of battery materials on a purchase. And so that behavior is going to change soon. So it'll be interesting to kind of see where that all plays out. Well, anyways, all right. Well, Paul, I want to thank you for coming on the show today.
Yeah,
This
thank
is
you.
this is interesting because it's great to see what people are doing in different spaces, and you definitely occupy a unique niche. I'm going to go ahead and, folks that are watching, I'm going to go ahead and end the show. There won't be a show the next 2 days because I'm traveling. Bill and I will be back on Tuesday, and we'll have a special guest then as well. And Paul, just hang on a minute.